fan of interviews with, or maybe not necessarily interviews, but a fan of Mr. One Bradley Charles Cooper, you know?
Oh my God, Bradley Cooper. Sure. Man, that clip of him on Inside the Actor's Studio is so good. Like, I think there's a couple out there, because he went to the Actor's Studio, and there's one where he just like is just crying his eyes out.
Yeah.
To like, I think it's Robert De Niro or Sean Penn, and he's just like, I don't know if I haven't watched it in a while, but yeah, and also like, I don't know, there's Bradley Cooper back in 2006 where he's like doing Wedding Crashers, and you're like, this is a good bad guy, and then he kind of disappears for a bit. I think it was like on Alias or some shit or whatever, and then there's like the Bradley Cooper that's in like A Star Is Born. I mean, obviously he was in Hangover, and that was huge as well. But
like American Hustle and stuff too.
Yeah, that's it. It's like Bradley Cooper, David O. Russell versus Bradley Cooper. And I love Wedding Crashers, even though, you know, by 2021 standards, it's maybe a little problematic at times. But what isn't that has been made in the past? I'm just really happy for him. I don't know him personally, but I'm really happy for him and for his, for, you know, no pun intended, but his star has risen. Good for him, man.
It's funny you mentioned the Inside the Actor's Studio one, because that was kind of where I was going with it, because at the end of that, James Lipton brings up the Proust questionnaire and asks him a few questions from that.
Classic. The Proust questionnaire.
I thought we could throw a few of them in here to start.
Sure, let's do it.
What's your most favorite word?
My most favorite swear word or just straight up word?
Normal word. Swear word's coming later on.
God damn it. All right. I'm like, I both wish I had prepared more for better answers, and also, I don't know. I'm just like...
Did you ever think about it when you were watching it? You never kind of answer them in your mind?
You know, I just get so immersed in the actors' interviews that I don't even think about myself. It's so escapist. I'm kidding. I do, but I can't remember. So I would say most favorite word, it depends, because there's the word that I'll use too much, which is probably like awesome or fuck.
Either end of the spectrum.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I really shouldn't put them in emails as much as I do, but you know, no one's expecting me to be like, sincerely yours, Noah Sacre. But then there's like aesthetically words like eon or cactus that like, that I don't know, they just look good, but that I think feels more to the aesthetic.
Cactus is the logo for Vintage.
Is it?
Yeah, we got a little cactus as the emblem or whatever you want to call it.
Well, today's favorite word is going to be cactus. Jeez. What's
your least favorite word?
Least favorite word? I don't know. It's probably like pus.
Yeah,
it's just...
a word that makes you recoil.
Yeah, it's like, I'm good, you know? I don't have the thing where like people are like, I hate the word moist. I like to splish splash in a bath and in the sea, so I don't mind being a little moist, but pus is like, oh, there's never a good situation where you're like, yeah, it was full of pus yesterday.
It kind of comes down to the connotations of it.
Yeah, so gross.
What sound or noise do you love?
Sound or noise that I love? The sound of my own voice, baby. I mean, that's probably more true than it should be. But John Hamm's got a pretty good voice as well. I'm currently rewatching Mad Men, so
nice.
Sound the opening chords to A Case of You by Joni Mitchell. It's just that specific tuning, and also it was like, it's so entrenched with, we grew up listening to that record loads, and my mom's no longer with us, and so every time I hear it, I just cry, and I think of her, and I'm like, but at the same time, I love it. I genuinely like, just love everything about Blue, even though it's impossible to listen to these days without just, absolutely bawling.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Well, he's no longer in office, so we can talk shit about him, but Donald Trump's blowhard voice, that shit sucked. Like, I know it's such an easy answer and everyone is going to say it, but it feels like for 4 years we've been like rolling on this frequency of just like there's this constant fucking tinnitus or tinnitus, depending on which side of the Atlantic you are, that's just in the back of your head. And then like he got banned from Twitter and YouTube, and suddenly you're just like, wow, okay, I'm not thinking about the president every day. That's quite nice. So his fucking voice really, really irritated me. Like, and I think they should study it on a like scientific, on a science way, my man. They should study it. I know I sound like a stoner, but I'd love to know exactly which frequency.
Such a whiny voice.
It sucks, man. It sucks. Everything about him and his fucking family suck. Just, ugh. So yeah, I honestly like. I wish I had a better thing. Like, nails on a chalkboard. That sucks, but like, not as much as fucking Donald Trump's fucking shitty little fucking voice. Anyway, sorry. I digress.
What profession other than your own would you practice?
Probably something in movies. Like, I'd probably try and either go act or make movies or fucking anything that has to do with movies. Like, or be a conceptual artist or a illustrator or cartoonist. Like, those are the kind of things I was almost going to do, and stuff that I just do for fun now. But before I went into music, I was going to go study conceptual art for like movies and concept design, fucking coming up with some cool new car designs for Porsche, available now.
Is that where the motif comes from in the music, the whole kind of cinema thing that's going on?
I think so. I think there's like, there's a lot of stuff on the album itself and in just the music in general that relates to movies. I don't know. I think there's a lot of songs that start out as a vision of like an acid trip. No, like a scene from a movie. When you're writing lyrics, sometimes you have a great idea for a song. Sometimes you don't. And sometimes you just write stuff to just like write, and you'll come up with some cool lines and you're like, oh, okay, that's an interesting place that my brain wanted to go. Almost like free association, but very quickly you're like, oh, that's kind of where the song's going. And it'll paint kind of like a movie scene. Like I was writing a song, I was doing a Zoom session the other day with this guy Nat from Span 303, and we were like writing some cool lines, and then we're like, oh, this is like the scene of like someone having like his worst day on the stock exchange and just being like, fuck this, and just like running out into the street and getting immediately hit by a Ferrari or whatever. I forget what it was, but it was like, I think a lot of the songs start out with what looks like a movie scene, and or like a what's his name, Gregory Crewdson picture, which all of his pictures are made to look like stills from a movie. He's an amazing photographer, obviously, and cinematographer. I think a lot of movies and a lot of pop culture informs my music, and subsequently the videos I direct.
Is that in the same way what you're saying there about like an image from a film, or Gregory, what was his surname? Crewdson. Yeah. In the same way those images kind of pull you right in and tell you a lot of different things. Can you do that musically? Are there certain sounds that you can use to kind of hook someone in and pull them in straight away and start to paint a picture?
I think so. I think there's like, yeah, for sure. There's production stuff that you can do. I mean, in terms of lyrics, you could hint at someone else's lyrics. You could musically, for example, if I was to like sit down and play like a minor seventh on a piano, there's a chance that it would sound quite Princey. There's things, I don't know, if I was to like lay down a like that little Yamaha keyboard, you could like have a Juno-y kind of sound, or like a Prophet-y kind of sound, and make it sound kind of James Blakey. There's like things that you could do that evoke other things. In terms of movies, I think it helps when you like drop samples into stuff. You know, I think the Avalanches are really good at that, and obviously a huge influence on my entire existence, bringing up like pieces of dialogue. Like there's a bunch of snippets on the album where I cut up like pieces, like audio from these tapes, because my mom was always had a camera strapped to her hand. She's always filming us. She died too soon, but like if she was around now, she would have had, you know, an iPhone and would have had to pay for all the cloud space because it would have been filled up with you know, countless videos. Who knows what could have been, but like, yeah, back then it was, you know, DV cam, and then it turned into like this little flip camera. And we have those tapes, and my dad a few years ago digitized them all, because you have to like, you know, give them to a service or do it yourself, because they're like little DV tapes. And so he gave us all, for like me and my two brothers and my sister, he gave us a little thumb drive with all these videos of us when we were kids and growing up, which was surreal, because you're like, oh shit, there's us, there we are. And there's all these like background noises of where we grew up in France, and you hear the cicadas in the summer, and you hear like the splashing of the pool, and you hear my mom. You don't see her that much because she's always behind the camera. Sometimes she's in front, but like there's so much of her just like commenting on what's happening. So I just chopped loads of that up and threw it in the album. Some of it you can hear at the end of songs or in parts. Some of it I literally put the volume to, you know, minus 30 dB or whatever, just so that it would digitally be baked into the record without people actually knowing. But I know, which is such a pretentious artist thing to do, but fuck it when the shoe fits.
Is that what the end of Crash and Burn is? One of those samples?
Yeah. I think it's Crash and Burn. Yeah, I mean there'll be one at the end of Crash and Burn. There's one at the beginning of Gwyneth. There's like some splashing, like at the end of Everything I Know into Gwyneth. It like kind of so I love that about Since I Left You and Wildflower to an extent by the Avalanches. All the songs kind of blend into one, and obviously they had versions of that, be it like the Cornerstone or the Gimmicks mixes that they did, that were like versions of the album. I don't know if they were circulating before the album came. Anyway, a lot of that feels like a big mix of samples, but they all go into one. And I really wanted that with this record, to like have it as a continuous listening experience, even though the songs kind of like are just listenable as just songs. They're not all like mixed into each other, but there'll be like little pieces of audio, little like background noises. You'll hear just like a car faintly in the background, and it just connects both songs. So the idea is that subtly your mind kind of just is still listening out for the end of that song and suddenly listening into the beginning of the next song.
Is that kind of what you're doing with the keys as well on it's like Gwyneth, Life in Between, and Lay It Right? They're all like in the complementary, and it kind of just goes from thing to thing.
That's excellent, Alex. You are a smart dude. Yeah, it is. I don't know if they told you that or if you figured that out on your own, but that's awesome. Yeah, it is. The Gwyneth is in A, and then it goes into Lay It Right, and then it goes into Life in Between, or maybe it goes into Life in Between and Lay It Right. I think one of those, but they're like complementary keys. Yeah, I think like Life in Between is same key as Lay It Right, which is F sharp minor, which is the relative minor to A major. So they kind of fit together, again, in a very subtle way, where you're just like, you're listening to it and it kind of just siegs into like the next track. And because they kind of fit in the same key, I didn't want to do that with the whole record, because A, it would be boring to have your whole album in the same key or relative keys. But I just wanted to have like this kind of thing where, because like I listen to things like D by White Denim a lot, like more than most people, although probably my brother Ethan has listened to it as much as I have. That album does a similar thing where like it's got similar keys and the songs go into each other, and then you get to like whatever that song is in the middle of it, where it's like a much slower song, but you've just experienced like 20 minutes of just it, like every color of the rainbow washing over you at like 1,000 miles an hour. And it's really fun, and it's all in the same key. But it's not just a big jam. It like there's all these separate parts, and it keeps going into this stuff. It's really fun to listen to, and I wanted to have a little bit of that on my record.
Is that what allows Lay It Right to feel cohesive as well? Because that's the original production, right, from a few years back.
It is, yeah. I wanted to have Lay It Right and Klein on the record because I'd been writing the record at the same time as those, and Klein, I really liked the idea of like, because Late Right and Klein are the two of the bigger songs that I've got out on like Spotify. And
Klein's the first song you put out, right?
yeah, I mean it was Aubrey was the first song I put out, and then it was like Aubrey and Klein, same EP, and then the next EP was Lay It Right, which had songs like on it like Gleason and You Got Another Thing Coming If the Only Thing That's on Your Mind Is Me. Which was cool. Like I really like those songs, and I kind of wanted those on. I wanted Gleason on the record, but then there's not enough room, and you're making an album, and especially if you're releasing it a little later, it's like put a lot of new stuff on it if you can, just to make the experience better for whoever's listening to it. But because I love Lay It Right and I love Klein as songs, and they meant a lot to me, kind of in milestones of creativity, and I wanted them on the record. Like Real Talk, we had to negotiate to get them on. Luckily, that was a fairly simple process. It looked at one point that we weren't going to be able to because they came out on a different label. But in the end, yeah, they're on there. It's all cool, and the album sits. And Klein being like one of the most popular songs that I've got is a plus, but I for sure wanted it as the last track of my album because there's a nice like circular nature of it being like one of the first songs that I released, and it's now like the last track on the album, and it's about my mom, and it's it's a very personal track. It's a good note to leave the record on.
It's not a reference to Kevin, is it?
Well, yeah, but in the same way that like a lot of my songs, they're written as when I name something, I don't name it like demo 1, demo 2, demo 3. I'll give it a famous person's name, and I'll just trawl IMDb, and I'll be like, I'm not sure who Phyllis Diller is, but people know she's like an old actress, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna name a song Phyllis Diller, and it makes it so that I can remember the songs better. And also just gives each song a little bit of character. And like, if you don't know what to write about, just fucking trawl their IMDb and trawl their Wikipedia page, and you'll find some shit. You'll find some stories.
Gives you a spark.
Yeah, that's it. And I don't know. I like naming songs after famous people, but also it's not always famous people. It'll be like the fucking second AD on some like 1984 B movie, and you're just like, he or she had a interesting name, so that's the name of the song now. And then eventually, once I write lyrics to them, like Lay It Right till the 11th hour, it was called Gunther parentheses of Friends fame. And looking back, I maybe should have called it Gunther of Friends fame, because I think there's a lot of, like, obviously David Schwimmer's great, and Ross is mostly great as a character, but like we need to be shining a bigger light on Gunther, or James Michael Tyler, the actor who plays Gunther.
He went through a lot in that show.
Yeah, he did. He wasn't supposed to. He wasn't supposed to be a speaking part, but they wrote him in. He was just a guy who knew how to make coffee and was in the background, and they just wrote him into the show. And now he probably doesn't have to work all that much.
Just lives off the royalties.
Well, yeah, I mean, that shit gets put on TV a lot. I think you probably get...
Still on Comedy Central every day.
Is it? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I remember seeing it when I was home at Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, and like you'll get residuals, which is like royalties. But I don't think that you get residuals for if you're on a streaming platform, which kind of sucks. I don't know. I think there's
More people watching it though.
Yeah, I know. It's a different thing. I'm not exactly sure how the residuals stuff works with TV versus streaming, but what I've been led to believe is that if it's streaming, you don't actually get those royalties from something that you appear in. But because like a friend of mine, his dad still gets like, 50 cents once every 2 years for like a harpsichord thing he did on Blackadder, like, fucking 30 years ago or whatever, 40 years ago.
It's so weird how we haven't caught up to that in the internet age. Like, it's the same with everything, whether it be, like you're saying, there's streaming, Netflix, Spotify, YouTube. There's all these kind of weird loopholes where people just aren't getting paid and the kind of corporations are profiting as a result of it.
I know, man. It's not right. You're kind of like in a world where like everything is going so fast. I know everything needs its due process, but things like that are just taking too long to catch up. And people need the money to survive, especially like musicians and artists and stuff. Like, it's such a volatile, there's such volatile professions, and people end up leaving or stopping it so often because it's too hard, or it
takes like, too long to get paid.
It's too long. It takes too long to get paid.
Like 5 years before you get anything.
Fucking 10 years, man. Yeah, you're out here just like grinding. And I've got so many friends that were just like, nah, like, they stopped playing music. They were just like, I need to pay rent. It's hard, and I wish there were better systems. I wish there was more. I wish places like the UK and the US cared more about the artists they out loud say that they care about. Like, the UK, they're so proud that they exported the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and like all these great fucking old ass white rock bands, which I love. Obviously, I love the Beatles and the Stones. I just mean like they're so proud that they like came from England, but at the same time have a government support system for musicians and artists like the way they do in France. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but it's definitely better than like, oh, you want to be a musician? Well, go start a band. Oh, you want to be a promoter? Well, you have to front the 200 quid to rent the room and then put up the posters, but you have to pay for everything yourself, hoping that you'll make the money back on the door and on a cut of the bar. And then maybe you can pay your band $50 and like some beers. It's just like, it's not a good system. That's why like all these bands that go to France are like, whoa, when did I get elected mayor of France? Like suddenly people get taken way better care of, and they get paid like, I remember like first show in France or whatever, and you get paid like $1,000 or whatever, compared to the 150 quid you get paid for a show locally in Brighton. This is when you're a starting band. I just think there's better ways things can be done.
Yeah, it's such a long food chain as well. Like you go from the band to the promoter to the booking agent to the management to the label. There's so many people that need to take a piece of the pie, and that's part of the problem as well.
Yeah, I mean, that I'm not necessarily too mad at, because if you signed a label deal, like you knew what you were getting into. Same with a booking agent. Like if the booking agent was like, we're taking 10-15%, if your managers are like, we're taking at 10-15% of shows, your management likely will take 15-20% of anything that comes in. You knew what you were getting into when you signed it. Obviously, it's not always a perfect thing. Same with a label. If the label's like, we take 50% of everything, you could choose to release it independently. You wouldn't have that label support. You wouldn't have someone pushing your records to Spotify playlisting or putting marketing behind your record. You'd have to do that all yourself, which is totally doable. It's just more work on you. And it's nice to tap into a label and have that like expertise behind you. But if you don't like the cut, don't sign it. Some labels are kind of ridiculous in what they offer, and you're just like, man, it's just not worth it. But everybody's got it. Everybody wants to get paid. So I'm not mad at people getting their share if everyone's like doing their...
Yeah, as long as it's fair. I think maybe more what I was meaning is like when you have like a small band who have all these kind of layers at an early stage but don't really need it. if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that becomes it's hard for small bands for sure.
The album was originally called Character Actor before it.
No, false.
It's another album.
False. Yeah,
Okay.
I was writing Porsche, and as I was mixing it, as I was like finishing it and mixing it, I started writing like a bunch of new songs. And by the time I was done mixing Porsche, I kind of had a finished second album, which I then mixed myself mostly. And so for a while, because I got Porsche like nicely mixed by this mix engineer called Ben Allen, and we did that remotely. He was in Atlanta. At the time I was here in Brighton. That one I paid for, and I paid a pretty penny because I wanted it to sound like this amazing, quote unquote, like, not being a big headed here. I just wanted it to sound like it had that sheen of like a great album. And also, like, I don't think I was confident in my mixing the way I am like now. And he did such an amazing job. Him and his mix engineer, Ben Etter, really cool dudes, and have worked on some stuff that I really love and like listen to a lot. Yeah, so I kind of held back on the record for a minute, just as I was like figuring out how I was gonna release it, what was my best option to get it seen and heard. As I was wrapping that up, I looked at these 10 new songs I had. I was like, oh, these kind of all fit together stylistically. I've been writing these, and I wrote them really quickly. Like, considering I spent 2.5 years on Porsche, I think I wrote all these songs in a matter of like 2 months or 2-3 months, something like that for Character Actor. And so I started releasing. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to release. I have basically 2 debut albums. I'm going to release the second one first and the first one second, although the album that's coming out second was recorded first and is technically my debut album, but the debut album's going to come out second because, I don't know, it's fun to be arty and weird and nonconformist. And that basically almost happened. I released a few tracks from Character Actor. At first I was going to release them all. Like, I was going to release a couple singles and then release the record. But then that was in a shifting time. And I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to release a single every month off Character Actor. And as I was doing that, I realized actually I've got this other record and I've got this way of putting it out now. So I've still got a few more tracks on Character Actor to put out, and the record will come out maybe at the end of this year. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it'll come out eventually, but there's a whole other album there. And now I'm starting to write what is the third record, but I don't know if that'll come out. I don't know when stuff will come out. But Character Actor, a lot of songs are out there. And there's one called Headlights, which is doing quite well, like on Spotify. And that's it's fun to see because that got released completely independently with no marketing, with nothing behind it. Well, I paid for a little PR from a friend who had done some PR for me before, and she's amazing. But besides that, like, it's kind of like grown nice and organically on Spotify. So you kind of take pride in that. Not that I don't take pride in the rest of in Porsche or any of the other things that have done well there, but I don't know. It's nice to see just like this thing that I put out on my own little label, and it's growing. It's like, I've been growing chilies this year. It's fun. From like a little seed, you grow it, and it just becomes this nice big.
Like red chilies.
No, shishito, green shishito chilies. They're not very hot. They're like more like padron peppers, and you just fry them up in like a little bit of oil, some salt, or like some soy sauce. It's quite nice to like add some tamari to like splash that on the end.
Anyway, so you'll just have them as like peppers. You won't put them in something. Yeah,
you just eat them as nice little green peppers. They're delicious, and they're like a Japanese pepper, and they sell a lot of them in California, but you can't find them anywhere here in the UK. which is fair enough because it's not the climate for growing shishito peppers.
It's kind of cool that there's still some things that are quite a bit more specific to certain regions. Like in the way we've kind of been globalized, it's cool that some things are still hanging on.
Man, we're not, like, I love avocados, and I buy avocados, but we're not supposed to be eating avocados here. Like, same with tomatoes. Like, tomatoes suck in the UK because it's not the climate for them. Like, you go to France or Italy and you're like, oh man, I could just eat a tomato like an apple, but here they're just red balls of cold water.
You want some sweet potato though, then the UK's got you covered.
Sure, yeah, exactly. You want a fucking turnip, and yeah, game on. Anyway, so the character actor will come out, and some of the songs are out there, like Screener Season and Headlights, for which I've done videos for.
Screener Season is probably one of your best videos.
Ah, thank you. That's very kind.
You got the whole kind of virgin suicides thing going.
Yeah, that the whole thing is again, you know, very much like I would say character actor especially is very movie orientated, or at least like had that as a conceptual through line for the whole record of just like what it means to be on a movie set, what do movies mean to you, what do they mean to culture, what do they mean to one's identity, because you know people get mired in the things that they like. Your identity is the things that you like. There's that quote from like High Fidelity where he's just like, fucking call me shallow, but like it's the goddamn truth.
It's not, what is it? It's not
like
what you're like, it's what you like. What
yeah. It's that kind of vibe, and I find that, you know, it's a nice well to keep filling up from, because there's a lot of avenues you can write from there.
Where does Brownstone fit into all of this?
So Brownstone's the new single. It's out on March 12th, so hopefully they'll be around whenever this comes out. Yeah, it's Brownstone I wrote at the same time as Porsche. It would have fit fine on the record, but I wanted it to be a half hour. It ended up being 45 minutes. But then I was like, fuck it, it's my debut album. Like, I'll just
do what you want.
Pack. Yeah, but also I'll pack it out. I really like making records that are, or conceptually in my head, I'm like, I really like the idea of short, sweet albums, because it makes you want to listen to them again and again and again and again. Although that theory doesn't completely hold up, because I'm like thinking like, I love that first Vampire Weekend record, but I also love the last Vampire Weekend record, and the last one's like a 18, 19 song thing. Yeah, but I guess by then you're already in with the brand that you're like, you're happy to go on like a 55-minute journey. But anyway, so the first record I wanted to keep kind of short and sweet, and I liked Brownstone, and I was like, well, actually, this could probably hold up on its own as like a little Brownstone EP. So very quickly, as I was wrapping Porsche up, I was like, actually, and Brownstone was mixed by Ben as well. But yeah, I was just like, actually, I'm gonna keep this and release it as its own EP. So there's Brownstone coming out on the 12th, and then there's another couple tracks, and that'll round out that EP. Yeah, just putting out more music in 2021. It's pretty fun.
It's a very kind of classically cinematic image you open it with, you know, when you're speaking about the motel.
Yeah.
It kind of brings up this image of like Psycho or No Country for Old Men or whatever. Is that kind of a different way of you exploring that cinematic idea, but doing it in slightly subtler forms? Because it's not like an out-and-out cinematic statement, but it's still kind of touching upon it. For sure.
It's got yeah, absolutely. You hit it on the head. That's, you know, under the neon of the motel, cheap never looks so good. Yeah, it's very much like it paints that picture of, you know, old crusty, like you say, No Country for Old Men style motel, or what was that movie, that Rubber, which was like a Mr. Oizo movie, I think, where like there's this tire that keeps rolling around and murdering people.
What?
Look it up, man. It's fucking nuts, but it's cool. So, and that has some scenes by a motel.
It's like that movie about the hand that keeps killing people.
No, but it's a similar vibe to that. It's literally just a tire, and people keep dying. It's It's really funny.
It sounds like a troll.
It's not. It's real. It's directed by Mr. Oizo. With that song, it's very much about like, did you ever see that guy? I forget what his name. The guy was like, the rent is too damn high. That was his catchphrase. He was like running for office. And his platform was, the rent is too damn high. Because it is. Like, he's fucking right. The rent is too damn high. People can't afford to live. And it sucks. And that's kind of what that song like touches on. The fact that it's millions of landlords out there and lots of people hurting and fuck the 1% and yada, yada, yada. All that stuff is kind of built into the imagery of Brownstone, but wrapped up in this very like chill, cinematic, falsetto-y, cool little beat thing.
Is that an ET reference as well?
Which one?
I'm just looking for a way to call home.
No, it's not. It's not a ET reference.
But
But you know what? No.
Keeping true to the Spielberg theme.
You know what? We'll cut this out. We'll say that. No, it is. Yeah, it is. I was just, just really am into vertical integration, and I wanted to, make the lyrics work with the name. But thank you for finding that. I'm going to tell people that I came up with that, and that was the original intent. Thank you, Alex.
Speaking, we've been talking about movies a lot. How long were you in LA for? The kind of land of Hollywood?
Like 7 months, I think. Something like that. 6-7 months.
How did you find it?
It's great. It's great. I mean, the plan was kind of to be back and forth with it. I went out there because, I'd been in the UK for a minute. I was like, I want some sunshine. And my partner, she had a year off before she had to go back into what was going to be several years of medical. I mean, she's already done her medical training. Now she's just been working as a doctor, but still, even when you're working, you're still like, you're always working towards like the next level. But she had the possibility to take a year off. So she did, and we went to LA, and it was great. We, had a few friends there. We made a few more. Like the first 2 weeks I got there, I had split up from my old manager like the November before, and I was speaking to a couple people in LA, and just the first like few weeks being there was like suddenly there was all these like talks and sessions happening with all these new people. You're like, oh my God, like I should have done this ages ago. Like there's so many, it's a town full of the things I love, like music, movies, sunshine, the ocean.
Much like Brighton.
Much like Brighton, sure. Minus the sun. I mean, Brighton gets its sunshine. There's not as much, but and it's colder here. But it's Brighton's also like a smaller town. That's like the appeal to it. But LA's a bigger town, which is also the appeal to it. Like I wanted to be immersed in a big town with lots of things to do, lots of places to see. It's fucking expensive. I was, staying with my sister out in sunny old Glendale. And I got to spend like a bunch of time with my nephew and just watch him grow for a few months, which is like they're really formative years, and it's a time that will never be the same again. And so it's cool to just like be able to be around to help, and like also just go biking with at the time a 7-year-old and develop a relationship there. It was nice, and just good opportunity to get closer with my sister and my brother-in-law, and yeah, it's a really fun time.
Does your perception of yourself change when you put yourself in a new environment like that?
That's a deep question, Alex. Does your perception? Yes, in certain ways. Like, I think it's hard when you're working on an artist project like this, you're thinking about yourself all the time, like to an unhealthy degree. You're thinking about your career. You're thinking about your artistic output. Thinking about relationships with friends and family. But you're just thinking about yourself a lot in a way that if I was going to a job 9 to 5, if I wasn't to generate the stuff, art yourself, then you would be thinking about yourself in that context less. that's one part of it. And I think like being on Instagram and things like that definitely heightens the competitive nature of this business, which is not a good thing. I don't think it's good to be competitive, to like look at others and be like, man, they're going and doing this thing, why aren't I? That happens naturally, and it's good to kind of just embrace it and be like, no, that's not actually how I feel. That's just this like impulse that happens. So I think there's an element of like when you're in a town like that. But I didn't really get it when I was out there because it was just like being on coke the whole time, because you're just like, I'm here and this is like only gonna last like a short while, and like you're just fucking excited, you know? You're bouncing from opportunity to opportunity. So you don't really have much time to like stop and be like, oh, who am I compared to all these other people? It's more like, let's play. Let's make things. And I think when you have maybe calmer, leaner times, that's when you start getting a bit like, oh shit, what am I doing? And what should I be doing? And I mean, what you should be doing is the same thing you were doing before. I just think positive, man, or something. I don't know.
That feeling you mentioned there, that's more immediate when you were like, you know, you're scrolling through Instagram and comparing, and it's not actually how you feel. It's just like an immediate response to it. Yeah. Can you always distinguish? Do you know in the moment? Do you realize pretty quick that that's not actually how you feel, or that sometimes linger for a little bit?
No, I mean, I'm a human being like the rest of us, Alex. Of course, like there's times where it's, you know, it's in the back of your mind and you're not thinking about it. But more and more, I think I get good at realizing that feeling as it's happening. I think it just takes practice. Like anything, I don't think Instagram is a good thing. I don't think scrolling through Facebook is a good thing. I like the connection with friends for sure, and I like being able to see this like endless well of creativity, and there's some funny ass memes. But like in the long run, is it making me happier? Probably not. No. But it's also like, unfortunately, it's a business where you can't step away from it. Like, you need those tools and you need to nurture them. So you might as well make it as pleasant of an experience as you can. Don't do it too much. Do it as much as you're still happy. And then once you start getting negative, then tell it to fuck off. I logged out of Facebook a couple months ago. Man,
nice.
It was a great feeling. I didn't delete anything. I just logged out of it. Because I was realizing like I was spending like just too long just scrolling, and I'd be like working on a song, be like, oh, what's happening? And then you just get sucked into it. You're like, this sucks.
You get someone to post for you and stuff on it now? Like the band, or the music, sorry, rather.
No, I still post on it, but I'll just do that when I have to post, and then just
log in, yeah.
Yeah, just like log in, post, or sometimes you can do it through Instagram, and I'll just repost through Instagram.
Posting ghost, I think, is the phrasing for it, isn't it?
A posting ghost.
Yeah, so you log in, you post, and then you ghost, you leave.
Far out. And I've learned something today. But like, I should probably do the same for Instagram too. Also, don't be hard on yourself. Like, it's a fucking pandemic, man. Everything's boring. Like, no one's dancing anymore. No one's fucking doing anything. Just scroll through Instagram because there's nothing else to do right now. Like, we all want to go play shows. I really want to go fucking just dance and drink. Like, I quit drinking back in November as well, for like a little while. And it's been nice. It's been really nice to just, I think there was like a time in the pandemic, not where I was drinking too much, but like there'd be nights where we'd be like, let's have a Zoom call. Let's have Zoom drinks. And you get like trashed. Like, you're like, oh, let's make it special, have a couple margaritas, and you get just trashed, but you're like in front of a computer.
It's so depressing when you're on your own.
Yeah, or I'd be with my partner, but still, it's just like,
yeah.
I just, you know, if we were having some margaritas and drinking, and we were out having fun with people, and conversing, and it's not like this thing of like, no, you go, you go. Like, that's frustrating. But yeah, so I look forward to getting back on the sauce and dancing. Apparently, is what I'm saying.
You just gonna hold off from it until the kind of pandemic is by, and we can get back into pubs and stuff again, or?
I think so, or I don't know. Like, it wasn't like I didn't put myself through AA or anything. Like, I didn't have like that kind of thing. Luckily, I just think like I'd been drinking for like, I've been drinking since I was like 15, 16. Some weekends you drink a lot. Some weeks you end up drinking like a glass of wine or two every night, and you're like, cumulatively this is maybe too much. So it's just like, it's good to take a break from these things. Like, if I'd been doing anything straight for 15 years, I'd be wanting to take a break. Maybe, music notwithstanding, that's kind of easy. But even things like that, I think even music, sometimes you kind of need a break from it. If you're just like, you'll go through periods of writing what ends up being similar songs, similar sounding things, which can be good, can be not good sometimes. So you just at least give yourself a couple days break from it, where you'll just, I'll just be like, I'll draw. Or this year, for example, because there was, I was putting the record out this year. I ended up spending most of the first part of this year just directing, not actually making all of that much music. Like, I look back on it now and I still wrote like a fair few songs, and I'm like, okay, this actually sound pretty cool, and they could end up on the third record, or what will be maybe the second record, who knows. But just spent so much time doing like promo and directing for myself, just starting to direct for other people as well, which is really fun because it's easy. I love it. I love making movies. I love getting better at it, and the more you do it in close proximity to each project, the like quicker you get at things.
You end up flow.
Yeah, that's it. You reach this flow state where you're just like, oh man, like everything's cooking. I know how to import all my files. I know how to edit them quickly. I know what I want. I know what shots I want. Like, I got back, we were doing a video a few weeks ago. I hadn't directed a thing in a while, and I hadn't edited a thing in a while. They're like, oh, what do you want for this? I'm like, fuck, I don't know. Like, what kind of, do you want a wide? Do you want a close? I'm like, I guess I want both. I think if you're in the zone of it, you're just more like, no, just one wide from over there, one close here, and then let's move to the next shot. But like, if you haven't done it in a while, it's just this thing of like, you're just a little rusty and you're getting back into it.
Are songwriting and directing different muscles?
Yeah, they're for sure different muscles, but they tap into a similar thing. They tap into a similar creativity. Songwriting, when you're doing it, again, there's like this flow state of songwriting. I'll get into it where like I'll write a song every day. Like when I'm in that special Goldilocks zone where everything feels good. Where you're just like, you wake up early, you write a song before midday, and then you record that song in the afternoon. And that's fucking great. And like a lot of Character Actor was that kind of vibe where I would just wake up, I'd write songs that were weird and that made me laugh, but they weren't necessarily funny. They were just like, I was like, and that makes me feel something, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'll record that. And then you record it quite quickly. Same with directing, like I was just saying, but they require different skills. Like, directing is, especially, even the way I do it, which is like with a small crew. I go out with like 2 filmographers and a photographer, and then if there's like actors, then like maybe a couple actors. Like, I'll get some friends involved, like, in the Crash and Burn video, in the When You Want Me video, they're all like friends, and a lot of the time the same actors, which is fun. I like putting in familiar faces where you're just like, oh, you're almost like tuning into like a new episode. Like, as a new video comes out, you're like, oh, I recognize these characters. She played the secret agent in that last video too, and now she's hula hooping, but also a secret agent. Treating your kind of overall oeuvre like an episodic thing, as opposed to just like, we're making another piece of video promo. treating it like what it deserves. Treating it with the artistic merit it deserves is a fun thing. But yeah, they're different. They're different experiences for sure.
Have you learned things in directing that can then be applied to songwriting and production, like kind of lessons in general?
Yeah, like some good collaboration. People are smarter than you. Like, you don't know everything, so it's just good to be reminded of that. It sounds like such a big-headed thing, and I really don't mean it to. I'm so interested in so many different things. Like right now, I'm learning this thing called Touch Designer. It'll generate textures and patterns and things like that. If you want to use it, it's a free software that you can do so much with. And right now I'm like learning a few bits so that I can use that for the directing side. But also I'm like, but then in the future I could probably generate some shapes, patterns, flow, like motion stuff, like motion graphics to use maybe in the live show. So you're kind of thinking of anytime you're picking up a new skill, you're kind of thinking of how it could apply to all these different facets of creativity. So if I'm like, I'm learning how to direct, it's obviously so that I can promote the music, but it's also so that I can end up directing, other music videos and eventually like more scripted content and things like that in the future would be, the ideal scenario. But it's good to, I'm not going to go to film school at this point because my main job is to make music, and that's what I want my main job to be. But I also like want to learn all these different things. And same with like animation. I'll learn how to I'll animate stuff, and I'm like, this can be applied to my directing. Again, it can be applied to live stuff, and
yeah, it all feeds into each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of both directing and live stuff,
yeah,
M. Night Shyamalan popped up at the show in LA.
He popped up at the show in LA. Yeah, it's fucking funny, man. It was my first show in LA, and like I have this thing where like I have a dream, or it's a nightmare. It happens like maybe 2 weeks or a week before I've got like a show, if I haven't played a show in a while. And like, it doesn't always happen, but it's happened a lot where I'll have that dream where it's just like I'm on stage, the laptop fucks up, there's like 30 people in the crowd, but they're all really attentive. And they're different shows. Each time the dream's different. It's not like the exact same thing, but it's definitely got the same vibe each time where I'm just like, I'm on stage and I'm like, okay, just 2 seconds. And then like, everything fucks up. And this show in LA was my first show, and some stuff actually did fuck up. It was not my best show. And M. Night Shyamalan was in the crowd. I was like, I knew it. It was him. He directed this. It was his big twist. No, it's because his daughter was the support act. Salika, she's so good. She's such an amazing singer. She's like, kind of got Erykah Badu vibes. They just put out a video, which was, I think, directed by her brother. Amazingly choreographed thing. Like, looks great.
Sounds like there's too much talent in that family.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent in that family. But yeah, I was like, this is your big twist, M. Night. You wanted this for me. You wanted the lights to short circuit the laptop and cut out halfway through Klein. I think that was within the first few weeks of being in LA or whatever. And I think maybe like day 3, me and Anya went to a cafe because I was talking to a potential manager. I like look around and there's like Aaliyah Shawkat, who plays Maybe in Arrested Development, and she's in Search Party, which is...
It's in a good film.
Excellent.
Animals came out a couple of years ago.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Worth watching, pretty good. I think it's on Amazon Prime now.
Is it? Okay.
Worth checking out.
But I saw her and I was like, fucking... Right, yeah, you're in LA. It's just famous people everywhere because that's where TV is filmed. Yeah. TV and movies are shot there, so like they exist. everywhere. And then the meeting was over. I went over to Anya. I was like, "Did you see?" She's like, "Yeah, John Hamm, right?" I was like, "No, fucking maybe Funke." She's like, "Oh yeah, no, I saw her." I was like, "John Hamm was here?" She's like, "Yeah, he's really attractive." I was like, "Yeah, obviously he is." So I missed John Hamm, but I saw maybe. But like, you just see famous people like around. M. Night was in the crowd.
Do you become accustomed to it?
No, but like, I still enjoy the like. Again, I'm a human being with 2 eyes and a heart. But so like, I still get starstruck, and but not in a. I think when I was younger, I was like so fascinated by like. I think because we grew up in the south of France, so there's a festival, the Cannes Film Festival. And so like when we were kids, sometimes you'd go out and just go look at the red carpet just to spot a celebrity. I remember my mom like saw Spike Lee, or like maybe we also, I can't remember. And then our friend Donna like saw All Saints down like the red carpet or whatever. And she got them to,
Why were they at Cannes?
She got all 4 or 5 members of All Saints' autographs, and so we have that in the All Saints album at home. But one of them just signed, "Who the fuck are you?" Which I thought is such a fucking, like in hindsight, such a hilarious move of just being like, "Who the hell are you? Why do you want my autograph?" You're like, "'Cause you're All Saints, and like this is." All gonna fade away pretty soon. So enjoy the fame or whatever. But yeah, but less so. Like as I've, played shows and gotten to meet more and more of heroes or just people in the industry, you're kind of like, you get less starstruck because every time you meet a new famous, quote unquote famous person, you're kind of just like, yeah, there's just another human with a bunch of other human problems. Like, they probably have psoriasis. They probably worry about their parents. I don't know. Like they just have like, myriad problems that every other human. Like I met Boy George once. He was super lovely. We met backstage at a show. I don't know. There's just like all these like randos that you're like, oh yeah. But then there's been times where I've met like musicians, for example, that I really like looked up to. I used to have a radio show in high school, and so I'd use that as an excuse to like go interview people that I loved.
Join the club.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's really fun, and I miss the radio show. I really want to like get back into it, but I guess that's kind of what I've been doing with the Reddit thing.
Live streams.
Of late, yeah, the live streams I've been doing on Mondays and Wednesdays have kind of turned into that. At first, it was just like playing through songs from the record, just like once or twice a week, and people would tune in, and like you'd have like 200,000 people watching you play your songs from the record, which is rad, and they interact live. And now every one we do, but I've got Sammy producing from LA in the background or helping out with all that stuff. So now it's turned into this like weird thing of because this is an ever evolving show. So now on Mondays it's an interview show where I get to like interview other musicians I love. And then a few Mondays ago, one of the people we were going to interview dropped out, and so I was like, oh well, I could either like go back to just playing my songs, or we open up a Zoom room and like interview just let anyone come in. And that's become the show now. It's super fun. It's like this, it really feeds into my love of chaos. So it's got, so we just open up the Zoom room. Sammy basically monitors it and he's like, yo, okay, we've got Monster 679 or I'm a Tiny Little Girl or whatever, like fucking weird names that these people on Reddit have.
It's Reddit, and some crazy shit going on.
Man, they really do. And so we open up the Zoom room and I just sit here with a guitar and my backing tracks playing of these new songs I've been working on. and just sing about their problems or their hopes and aspirations for 2021. And that's the show now. And it's really fun. And I look forward to it every week because I'm like, yeah, it's, spent a few months just doing live streams and now it changed. It's great being able to interview anyone who wants to be, who wants to get their 15 minutes.
Can you, that kind of energy you're getting there from that new idea and the kind of buzz you get from it, can you channel that into creativity in other forms? Like, could you take that energy and channel it into songwriting in some way and carry it into that process?
Well, that's a great question because kind of, yeah. Like the thing I really want to do for the next album is write it live. I was thinking I've dabbled in it and like I'm going to be doing more of it, but like writing live on Twitch and writing live on Reddit, where I've just got the camera like this set up. And yeah, just have like Logic open. Like, you see plenty of production Twitch live streams from like Disclosure or Kenny Beats or all these things. I really like the idea of writing a whole record live because then you actually have like a testament of it. You've left something behind where you can go back and watch and be like, oh, that's when I come up with that bass line, or that's when I come up with those drums. And a lot of it is boring. I think it gets fun around the second hour once I've like laid down drums and a bass line and I can start jamming with chords and melodies and guitar stuff. I think maybe the early part of watching someone build a drum kit is maybe a little boring. Although it depends. Maybe someone who's not so much into production might be like, oh, this is quite cool. I get to have the like veil taken off it. But yeah.
How long do you stream for?
Depends. Sometimes like an hour, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes a little bit more. If I'm working on a song, I'm just writing all day. But it's interesting because there's definitely a thing of like when people are watching, you get this different energy. So you're more performative, which is a good thing, but you're more aware that you have to entertain someone, which is maybe not the best thing. The best version of it will come out when it's like, once I've done it a bit more and it becomes second nature to just ignore the Twitch side of it and just be doing what you were doing anyway. And then occasionally dip in and see the chat and just be like, use that positive energy to like perform to, but not be so like aware of yourself.
If you sit down at an instrument, are you always going to have ideas?
Sure.
Yeah. So you know there's no pressure of something's not going to come. You know that whatever happens, you're still going to be able to have something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like there's plenty of tricks to like force yourself into to writing better, or to come up with something. Like there are days where you put your hands down and you're playing another F minor 7 and you're just like that's just like the chord that my hands naturally go to every time I go to a piano. It's just like F minor 7. And I love that chord. It's great. But not all songs can have F minor 7 in them. Some need other chords. So like a good trick is to just start sampling stuff. Just go through Spotify, find some old shit, like record it into Logic or buy the song on iTunes or whatever and chop it up. And then you'll kind of get automatically like putting in a sampler and chopping it up, because you can then take it out later, but you'll have some chordal information to kind of populate whatever you're doing. So that's a good one. Or listening to music, honestly, listening to music and just be like, oh, I like the tempo and energy of this song. I like the bass sound of this song. I like the warm brassy synth on this song. So you just find inspiration wherever you can. And sometimes you need to like force yourself into it. I think there's like a thing where, I mean, it's so easy talking about it like on here. I think sometimes when you're on Twitch, it's maybe you feel self-conscious that like those tricks in the moment anyway, you'll be like, oh fuck, I'm like stealing, but you're not. You're just getting inspired like literally everyone does all the time by other art, other music. And then like if you're struggling with lyrics, same, movies, paintings, whatever kind of media or pop culture or art will help. Like looking at album titles, other song titles, or looking at other people's lyrics, like shit like that will help you kind of go, oh yeah, that's what they're trying to say. I'd like to say something like that, but from this other person's point of view. Or so when it comes to songwriting, when it comes to chord stuff, when it comes to production, there's always something to do. It's just about not being so aware. Yeah, not being so aware of yourself. But that's hard to do when you're on camera in front of
It's almost that you're looking for the story of the song.
Yeah. Yeah, you are. You're looking for what is going to be the thing. But sometimes that can also bring you down. Like, I've been in sessions where it's just like, someone's like, oh, I want to write a song about, I don't know. I want to write a love song, or I want to write this, and I want to write. I was with someone and she was like, I'm in love for the first time. I was like, that's awesome. But you try and find like a different angle from it. And some sessions, like, you end up obsessing over an idea. This was a few years ago, me and my buddy Laurie, who we worked on loads of stuff together. And he's on a few things on the album, a lot of it. And you have to just say yes to everything when you're in a session. Just any idea that comes up, just say yes to it. Like, no matter how dumb or how much you don't like it, just say yes to it and see what happens, because you don't have to use it. Just say yes, record it. Record anything. If someone's like, can we try this bass line? Yep. Can we try this lyric? Sure. I want to rhyme the word baby and crazy. Fine. Do it. I want to do all this obvious stuff. You're like, fine. Because if you say no, then it takes the air out of the room. Like, it just immediately like, oh, I'm self-conscious. Oh, fuck. This person's like, they're not going to like my ideas. But if you just say yes to everything all the time, fucking take it out later if it sucks. But at least you'll have a jumping start to like move on to the next fun idea.
Yeah. And then when they can often, like, if you hadn't gone down that pathway, you wouldn't have gone to the good idea as well.
That's it. And if you had obsessed on like, what are we trying to say with this song? Like, if you had obsessed over that for like 2 hours and got nothing done, when you were just like, well, yeah, like, just, that thing of where you're just like overthinking and you're like, and it's just like silent in the room for ages, and you're just like fucking crickets, and you're like, oh, well, what if we, no, that's not, what, no, that either. As opposed to if you're just like, yo, we're in a club and we're popping some champagne. You're like, fine, whatever. Like, it'll be funny. It'll be weird. It'll be funny. And I say this with a caveat that I literally said no to a lot of those ideas in past sessions. And it took a while to like learn how to embrace the power of yes with Noah Sacre. I sound like I'm like
in a Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah, that's it. I feel like I'm in Yes Man. I don't mean it like that. If someone comes up to you and is like, can I have all the money in your bank account? I'm not going to say yes because the rent is too damn high. Brownstone, available today. But I think that like in specific creative situations, it's important, especially in collaboration, but actually in your own thing as well. But you get in your own way if you're not collaborating with someone. When you're collaborating with someone, it's easier to be like, yeah, no, let's fucking do it. If you're on your own, you'll just be like, I don't know. Like, you'll have that overthinky thing. Anyway.
It sounds like the director in you talking when you're talking about, trying to get that momentum and that energy.
Yeah.
That kind of energy of a set.
Yeah.
Where anything can happen and it's very spontaneous.
It is. That's literally what it is the nature of collaboration. Like, you're not seeing a director just on their own, just with the camera and the actors. Like, there's a bunch of people on that set making that thing happen. And I think those are important lessons that you learn from being on set to making your own music, is like, you to be open to collaboration. And for the first couple years of Speelburg, I was very much like, no, I'm going to do everything on my own. And I think that probably like stomped a lot of opportunities. Like, I was having, meetings with people, cool labels early on. They were like, oh, we'd love to put you in this room with this person. I was like, yeah, I think I can just make this record on my own, you know? They were like, all right, cool. And I think that kind of like vibe was very much like, it was a learning curve. And finally, like a couple years, 2-3 years ago, I kind of like had that click of like, oh, wait, no, this is so much more fun with other people. But I spent years in a band. Like, I think people that spend years in a band kind of have, when they get away from it, they realize like, I actually want to do everything on my own. I don't want to have 8 voices trying to agree on one thing. And also like the band, I was doing a lot of the creative decisions, and they eventually wanted to do more of it. And I think that's why I like started veering towards the Spielberg stuff. Honestly,
You find a balance.
yeah, that's it. I think it's just, it's a learning curve. And now I'm more in that vibe of like the next record. I'd like to get more featurings. I'd like to get more co-writing on it. And I just want to have it as, just a big collaborative thing that we can all look back on and be like, fuck, like we all made that, and we all fed off each other's energy while we were making it. It's for sure fun.